Hi everyone, welcome to my review of FATfreq Scarlet Mini, which is somewhat of an entry-level performer in their range of IMs, although it's not exactly a cheap IM. It's $800 if you buy this upgrade silver cable, which is not silver in color, it's red. And this cable does make a difference to the sound. So this is the FATfreq Scarlet Mini, not to be confused with the Maestro Mini, which I think I've reviewed on this channel. Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. And I'll leave a link in the description section of this video. Do check out the description sections of my video, because other than purchase links, I do often drop the link to the written review, which I shall, in the case of the description section for this video, I will drop a link to the written review for this, which is more extensive. So do check that out if you're interested in buying this, because the written review will have a lot of in-depth comparisons with other similarly priced IMs. Okay. So this is the FATfreq Scarlet Mini, and it comes in this red, sort of a mini seahorse-like case. It does have these interchangeable connectors should you need to use them, and these connectors are of pretty high quality. And of course, it's got this desiccant. If you want to use this in a humid environment, this comes in use. The IMs are pretty small and pretty comfortable, so more on that later. So FATfreq is a Singaporean boutique brand, and they specialize in high-quality handcrafted IMs for musicians, engineers, and audiophiles. So FATfreq's Pro IMs are generally custom IMs, and they tend to be neutral, while their consumer-focused universal fit IMs fall under the Maestro category, and they tend to be colored and somewhat in the base. So FATfreq has always been a very unique sort of entity. Their founders clearly like Tundra sub bass, and the first time I heard the brand naming FATfreq, Fat Frequency, it does allude to bass when you think about it, right? So the Grand Maestro is an amazing IM, which is their flagship, which I reviewed on this channel, and it's got great sub bass rumble. However, this is a completely different beast from the Grand Maestro, because this has a massive 30 decibel bass shelf. So, and just to sort of round out the discussion, it's $800. It's $629 if you only get the default cable, but with this pretty pink cable, it does go up to around $800. So now in terms of specs, guys, FATfreq is using their proprietary dynamic woofers. So these are bass chambers. They have bass chambers, and they have acoustic damping networks. So it's all tuned so that the Scarlet Mini can achieve the most elevated bass response at over 30 decibels. So a lot of people are saying that this is the ultimate bass set IM, and with the most amount of sub bass reach and impact and energy. So, and I do think it's somewhat true. Now, it's not a bass monstrosity. It's not just bass. I do want to talk about how the mid-range fares and the treble fares, because I do think it is surprisingly impressive for its all-rounder credentials as well. And finally, FATfreq does use proprietary circuits inside the Scarlet Mini to correct the non-linear impedances of multi-driver systems, which can be sometimes inevitable. And according to FATfreq, the different output impedances across your devices can cause FR to vary. And the tech FATfreq is using, it ensures consistency in FR for all their IMs when plugged into any device, right? Whether it's the PC front panel, phone audio jack, or the DAP. Okay, now I do want to talk a bit about what FATfreq has done so far in terms of their IMs that I've tried. So guys, I have tried a bunch of their IMs. I've reviewed the Maestro Mini, I've reviewed the Grand Maestro, and I've been a huge fan of FATfreq, not just because of their awesome stuff, the awesome sound, but also because these guys tend to be amazingly nice to deal with, like really nice to deal with, and really kind to talk to and all that, right? So overall, I like FATfreq. It is a brand I appreciate, and I do think it's one of my favorite brands of all time, honestly. So keep that sort of preference that I have in mind when you assess my review. So sub bass is huge, a 30 dB boost over neutral, so to speak, or over the IEF neutral. And so the bass does slope down pretty fast until it hits about until it hits about neutral at around 300 hertz. So you do get a certain amount of mid bass, although I would characterize the sub bass heavy. I would not say it's very mid bassy. So for a lot of you mid bass aficionados, you might find the mid bass to be ever so slightly lacking. And what that means is it doesn't have the sort of weight that mid bass gives you, right? I mean, the bass is wonderful, it's sub bassy, but for me though, because I'm a bit of a bass connoisseur, I do perceive that the bass would have sounded ever so slightly more colored in all the right ways and richer and warmer had there been a little more mid bass and perhaps a little less sub bass. But of course, a lot of you would like your sub bass more than your mid bass because, I mean, the way Harman folks or Harman aficionados and Harman supporting reviewers have talked up sub bass and have talked down mid bass, almost as if mid bass is a bad word, I feel like a lot of audiophiles gravitate towards sub bass instead of mid bass. If you are one of those, this is exactly what you're looking for. Because the other advantage of having a sub bass heavy, a sub bass cannon is that because the bass energy at 35 dB is tucked away at the farthest reaches of bass, so it's below 40 hertz, so to speak. What happens is you're not gonna get a sense of the bass, of the sheer craziness of the bass in most of your music. You'll be like, what the hell? This was supposed to have a 30 dB shelf. Why am I not hearing that monstrous bass? And that's a good thing because you'll still get the bass, but because a lot of it is tucked away at the farthest corners of sub bass, 40 hertz and lower, you will not hear that crazy impact in most of your music. The bass will not get in the way. You'll hear vocals with a lot of clarity, and it does have pinna gain, mind you. So that vocal clarity is preserved by having the bass shelf be tucked away to the farthest reaches of sub bass. That being said, if this was, I think, tuned down towards sub bass and had a little more mid bass, that would have given, let's say, rhythm guitars more weight. That would have given even acoustic guitars more weight, male vocals more weight, because without that sort of mid bass energy, what tends to happen is you do get a lot of clarity. So if you are seeking clarity in your mids, you will love it. It is a very clarity oriented tuning. I mean, it's not as clear as, let's say, a Final Audio 8000, but it is sufficiently clarity oriented, right? So that is worth keeping in mind. And I think what's also worth keeping in mind is overall, it's a pretty cohesive presentation. So the mid-range, I think, is also something FATfreq does really well. And this, to me, the mid-range does sound like it trades blows with other fantastic performers at this price point. It's not exactly a Sony IER M9 level mid-bass, although the Sony IER M9 is priced at a similar price point. So it's not exactly a vocal specialist, but the vocals here actually sound very good. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a lot of vocal-based tracks in the morning as opposed to bass-oriented tracks with this. So if you want your vocal-oriented stuff and you like bass, this is actually a very, very good buy. Now, in terms of the treble, guys, the treble is sufficiently energetic. So there's a lot of masterful tuning here going on because the treble does have energy in the mid treble. So that's between 6 and 10 kilohertz. And then it does have air. So you will find energy above 10 kilohertz as well. Now, some people I know have complained that it's perhaps too airy, but I'm someone who likes air, who can handle air. I don't have an issue with how airy it is. As a matter of fact, I think you need the air to balance how bassy it is. And because air also gives you a sense of the resolution coming through. Because guys, what happens with this IM, I mean, it's not just about bass, right? I think what people miss about this IM and how small it is, and it's not the most expensive IM, is its incredible staging and imaging. This IM, I think, just blows away every other IM under $1,000 for staging and imaging. So, I mean, I'm just surprised at how does an IM stage so well at this price point, which is why that's coming through also in the title of my review. Because the staging here is just masterclass. Like, I was listening to this with my... So this is not my most expensive DAP. This is the Ibasso DX260, right? And it's a wonderful DAP. It's light. It's powerful. Now, I was listening to the FATfreq Scarlet Mini with the Ibasso 260 in the morning today. And I was just so taken in, not just by the size of the stage, which to me sounded like it was very wide, wider than I would expect these tiny shells to deliver. I mean, the size has nothing to do with the stage that it can throw, but of course, with higher end IEMs, you do get bigger form factors because you get more drivers crammed in. But I was just so amazed with the size of the stage that it was throwing, and honestly speaking, the height of images. And I have zero idea where the height is coming from, but the height is very, very real, especially with the Ibasso. And I was almost imagining singers and musicians standing up at sort of my height and singing to me. And if you have experienced height of images, I think you'll relate with what I mean. Like, I'm a pretty tall guy, at least for Asian standards, and I honestly felt that the singers and musicians were almost of the same height when listening to this. So the height of the imaging was a standout factor for me. Now, like I said, timbre is very good. It's very decent. It is not the final word on timbre. There's nothing wrong with the timbre. I do think flip ears IMs do timbre ever so slightly better. I think the Treble, for example, has better timbre in mid-range. I think the treble timbre is fantastic. Something with how FATfreq implements treble. I mean, it just sounds great always. Like, it does just sound very, very well implemented. Very airy, like I said, and just lovely, guys. So I do want to make a point about the treble again. The treble does add to the sense of space and stage. It is just lovely. The mid-range, like I said, is very nice. And the staging, oh my God, the staging. Now, you might be wondering about the resolution and all those other things. The resolution here, guys, is very decent. I mean, I do think there are other IMs at this price point which are more resolving. Like, let's say, for example, the Scarlet, the Symphonium Helios, for example, which is roughly the same price point, around $1,000. I do think gives you more resolution. But the staging here competes with the Helios and might even be better in terms of image size. Dynamics, nothing comes close to this for dynamics, guys. It sounds punchy. You do have to turn up the volume for it to be able to take full flight, but it's super dynamic. The macro dynamic contrast is just very contrasty. So resolution is great, the speed is decent, and the coherence and timbre is decent, but the sound stage is phenomenal, the imaging is phenomenal, and of course the bass is phenomenal, and the treble is phenomenal. So you do get a huge amount of stuff, a lot of IM in this package of $800. I've tried this with the Aroma Audio A100 TB amp, a daisy chaining, my Sony WM1 ZM2 DAP. I've tried it with my Ibasso 260, and this sounds different. It sounds warmer and slightly more textured on this device, and the bass just sounds thunderous. Whereas on this device, the bass sounds very impactful, but it sounds slightly faster, and the treble sounds slightly airier, and the mid-range sounds magical, and it sounds huge on both. So that's it for me, guys. I mean, it does, I think, merit a quick comparison to some other IM at this price point. The flip ears Ether is a wonderful IM at this price point, which I think the Ether is more resolving, but this is more bassy and perhaps, bigger in sound stage. The Sony IER M9 is, I think in a certain sense, a better all-rounder than this. But the IER M9 lacks a bit of bass punch, which this has in droves. So overall, this is for you if you want bass, but you also want all-rounder credentials, and if you particularly like treble and stage. That's the Scarlet Mini. I'll leave a link in the description section of this video if you want to buy this. Thank you for watching, guys. If this was useful, do give this video a like. Stay tuned to my channel, follow my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.